in general? And I get this question from all sorts of developers, like beginners to senior devs who've only have worked full time, so they've never done the freelance game. So it's more a matter of how to get yourself out there than how to become a good developer. So I'll get into some of the basics right now, and also about kind of how I got started. So first and foremost, you need to have a portfolio of projects, preferably at least 3, but I think a better number is more like 4 or 5. The projects should each showcase like a different skill set, something that shows a different area of strength. So there might be one for showcasing, geolocation, like a Google Maps type of thing. Another one for live chat feed, things like that. Maybe another one for your UI UX skills. But the point is, you want to sort of put out a handful of projects that can showcase your skills in a variety of areas. You want to do, like I said, between 3 and 5, as opposed to one big project that has like everything. That's something that I see some people fall into, is they think like, well, I'm working on this one project that's going to showcase all my skills. And conceptually that makes sense, but it's going to take you forever to finish it, like 6, 7 months if you finish it at all. And if you don't finish, then you just lose all that time. Right? And that, believe me, this happens a lot. This is a very common situation. So you're better off sort of dividing and conquering, splitting up what areas you want to accentuate and then creating sort of these small projects for each one. And until you get a job or a contract, that is your job. That should be what you're doing. I should preface everything else by saying that nothing else matters until this is ready. So every other bit of advice I can offer doesn't matter until this piece is in place. But for some odd reason, this is also like the hardest thing for people to get people to do. The more I talk to people via Turbo and the Slack channel, and people who contact me via email, the more I'm finding that people they're just very resistant to this piece of advice. And if you don't do it, then, like I said, nothing else matters. Everything else I can say will not compensate for a bad portfolio or for no portfolio. So there's no like shortcut. I get a lot of people that they're kind of asking without saying it. What they're basically saying is, can you show me the shortcut? Like, what's the easy way? What's the fast way? What's the way I can accomplish that without doing this portfolio garbage? It's like, well, no, this is the shortcut. This is the fast way. Everything else that you're going to try is the hard way, and most likely won't get you there. You won't achieve your goal if you don't have a good portfolio, most likely. This is mostly for freelance engineering. It's not quite the case for full-time jobs. All right, so moving on from that. So then, let's say you have a decent portfolio, 3, 4, 5 projects, and they look nice. It's very important. I forgot to point that out. They have to look nice. They have to be aesthetically pleasing. Very, very important. People also are resistant to this. They sort of put together whatever they can to make it work. They're thinking too much like programmers and not enough like customers. The customer doesn't care about your ability to design a RESTful API. They don't care about that. They care about whether or not you can deliver a working product that looks nice. That's really it. So very often I'll see these portfolio projects that have like some sort of sophisticated functionality, but that just looks like crap. Looks like garbage. This technique will work for a full-time job at like a big company, because they'll just test you on your algorithm skills and things like that. But as a freelance contract engineer, if you want to do what I do, that will not work. You will not get clients that way, or you won't have the volume that I have had for a number of years, because you are judged on your appearance and your work appearance, not your physical appearance. So understand and accept that, and then work within those parameters. Okay, so that's point number 1. Let's say you have that in place. Next is actually breaking in and starting to get customers, clients. How do you do that from zero? Very, very difficult. By far, the best way is to find like a mentor, somebody who's already doing what you want to do, and work for that person, and getting that person's sort of workflow into his, work under him or her, or try to basically deliver value to that person in exchange for guidance and work, and stub out some work. That is hands down the best way to break in, but it's also probably the hard. Well, I don't want to say the hardest way because it's all hard, but this is no different. This is a very hard way. I've been that person myself a number of times. I don't do it anymore. I don't take on interns or people who want to work under me for free. They all say they'll do it for free. I get offered that about once a month or so. I don't know, maybe like 7, 8 times a year. So not quite once a month, but a handful of times a year. Or a person will contact me, or stay after like a workshop that I do, and they'll say, I want to work for you for free, and in exchange, I want you to just show me how you do your stuff. How do you get clients, and how do you do your programming and whatnot? And it's never going to be an equitable deal, because I'll have to explain so much. It slows me down so much that I end up losing a lot more time, and I can't service my clients as much as I have to, because I just have too much work to do, and then it ends up costing me money and time, because there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So if I'm spending an hour explaining to a junior dev how to rebase a branch because there's all these merge conflicts, and in the meantime the junior dev doesn't even know what a merge conflict is, right? That's going to take an entire afternoon. If the junior dev is smart, it's going to take an entire afternoon. That's if the junior dev is intelligent and motivated. So if we're dealing with a mediocre individual, we're looking at like a week, 2 weeks to properly get the whole rebasing and resolving merge conflicts thing down, right? And that's all time I'm not billing, right? I'm not going to bill my client to teach my junior devs. Something else that also happens with junior devs a lot is they don't know how good they're not. So what tends to happen is after maybe like a month or two, they start to think they're really good, and then they ask for pay, or they think they can go off on their own and operate at my level, and really that happens. And so what happens on my end is I just lost all that time. This has happened to me in the past. I'm not speaking hypothetically here. So all that takes is one time for that to happen before a senior dev is like, this isn't worth my time anymore. Why would I ever do this? If a junior dev wants to work under me for referrals, that person's going to have to pay me for that privilege. The last person for whom I've had this kind of relationship, this is about a year ago, is Ryan. He does a lot of videos on my channel. You've seen Ryan do all the React Native videos. That's him. I basically overflooded his workflow with freelance work that I just didn't want. I shoved it off to him, and he quickly became overflowed with that. He had too much work. Now the question you might be asking is, well, why did you do that in the first place? I thought you don't do that for junior devs anymore. Well, the difference is Ryan paid me to teach him, and he paid me market rate. So there was no sense of like me investing my time in him. As far as I'm concerned, this is an equitable exchange. Like, I already know his skills are up to par because I trained him, for which he paid me. So that was an equitable exchange. And then at that point, I already knew his skill level was where I needed it to be at a junior level, so that I can hand off work, my freelance work. I'm willing to do that again because it worked out pretty well, and I'm happy with the results. But the point is, it wasn't an indentured servitude type of thing. It wasn't like an apprenticeship where he worked under me for free. That I will not do anymore. So if you can find a senior dev who is willing to do that, take advantage of that. Not in any nefarious way. Like, try to deliver as much value in return as you can. So it would be very tough to convince me to do that sort of thing again. But there are ways a person can do it. The problem is everyone comes about it the wrong way. They all say they'll work for free. It's like, well, the value of that person's work to me is worth nothing anyway. It's not that it's costing me nothing. It costs me time to train that person. It's taking away value from my day-to-day activity. So what the junior dev has to be thinking is, all right, how can how can I make up for that? How can I deliver so much value in return for all this training and exposure to client base? That's actually at least as important, because every client I have always says, do you know any more devs who can do what you do? Who can we tap into your network? This happens literally every time. I had this conversation last week with one of my other clients. Every time this happens, as soon as I say, yes, that guy can handle the work, guess what? That guy gets the contract at whatever rate I say. I say he's 80 bucks an hour, 100 bucks an hour. That guy gets the contract. That's it. That's how it happens. So the right junior dev wants exposure to that endorsement from me. He's going to have to deliver some real value. That's going to have to be more than I'm willing to show up every day for free. That's not going to do it. In my case, what could that be? Well, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it in this video, but there's a lot of things I can use that don't have a lot to do with development work. Like, for example, I have an email list that's building up to around 5,000 people. If you're on Turbo, when was the last time you received an email from my newsletter? Never. I could use someone to handle that. That'd be nice. I don't have time in my day to write 3 newsletters a week, and I don't want to spam my users anyway. But right now, you're not getting any emails unless it's literally from me personally. You can deliver value that way. That I've got a lot of just dealing with a lot of stuff. Just organization, billing and stuff like that. I have to send out invoices and billing and stuff like that. Or even just take care of like the stuff I don't want to take care of. Like I had to pack up for a major move. I moved from New York City to Washington D.C. about 3 weeks ago. So I'm recording this in Washington D.C. Man, that was a really stressful experience in terms of just physically getting everything ready and putting all my stuff in boxes and whatnot. Just do that, right? That's a lot of value there. Just do that for me. Here, I'll take all your shit down from New York to DC. But see, people aren't willing to do stuff like that, right? People miscalculate the value of their own time vis-a-vis my time, right? Or any senior developer's time, right? And that's whatever, that's fine. But then there's no arrangement to be made. There's no equitable exchange. So understand, working for free isn't really free. And it only takes one bad experience from the other end of that equation to really understand that no, this isn't going to work. I already know how this is going to play out, and I'm not going to do it. So that's a long-winded explanation of entry point number 1. Entry point number 2 is the hit the pavement approach. Just get down, on the streets and start walking up and down your neighborhood and your downtown area and start walking into stores and saying, hey, I want to get into web development, building websites. I'll do your website for free. Because then you're delivering value to a company that actually needs it. If they have a shitty website or they have no website. And that will get you some work. Now, obviously, free isn't the goal here. So what you really want to do is get just one of those businesses to commit to that, which shouldn't be too hard. You should probably be able to pull that off in about 2 weeks, and then use that to establish yourself as a professional to the next client, who should be a paying client. And so then now we're getting into how to manage clients. And a very, very important thing to understand here as a freelance developer is that just demand itself creates demand. Simply being in demand creates demand. This is also true in other facets, every other facet of life. If you're a highly desirable man, other women will want to be with you just because you're a highly desirable man. That's just how it works. If you're highly in demand in like the film industry, or if you're highly in demand as an actor, right? Other production studios will want to work with you, hire you as an actor. That's just how this works. This is something with human psychology. You can leverage that in the freelance game. You get one client who isn't paying you literally anything. He's working for free, but he only commit 15 hours a week, right? 3-4 hours a day. And then you continue looking, you keep looking, and then when you get the next person who is mildly interested, make sure you can convey to that business or individual you're currently juggling another client. And so you can only commit 20 hours a week. And that'll establish you as a more credible professional option. And so you want to use that to your advantage. Now that person number B doesn't have to know that person number A isn't paying you anything. You can leave that part out of the conversation. All they have to know is that you're in demand and that you're trying to balance. You're trying to balance things. As long as you can present that image, then it'll help your situation in the freelance game. It's not, it's not going to guarantee anything, but it'll help. So those are important sort of techniques to use to break in. And then moving forward, let's say you use that technique effectively, you want to maintain it. Right? So a strategy I used in the past is I would have one client, let's say, who this is several years ago, so maybe 5-6 years ago. Let's say he's paying me $50 an hour, right? The company's paying me $50 an hour, and then but I would only commit 20 hours a week, maybe not even that, 15 hours a week, and then the client would always say, can you dial up the number? Can you do like 25-30 hours a week, right? As hard as this may be, turn it down. Say, I really can't right now because I have a couple other clients I'm juggling, even if it's not true. And I just had this exact conversation less than 5 days ago, so I still do this today. Even if it's not true, decline, or at the very least say, let me get back to you. I'm waiting on a few things right now. At the very least, do that. Now, what that does is that it keeps a slot open for another client whose rate you can negotiate against the first client. So now, let's say client A is paying you $50 an hour, right? And you're only doing 15 hours a week. It's not that much. So you have room for another client. Now you can go through as many as you can, as you want to, and negotiate $75 an hour. And a lot of them will just turn you down and say no, but that's no problem. You have client number A in the back seat. So you just keep on billing client number A until you get a $75 an hour client locked in at slot number 2. And that's how that goes. And then you work up your pay scale that way, right? That way you're never in a position where you have to accept like a compromised rate, and your negotiating leverage is completely destroyed, and you don't want to be in that position ever. So that's how you do it. And then, once you get client B at $75 an hour, at some point client A will complete the assignment, will complete. You keep that slot open, and then you start negotiating. And then at some point client B is going to say, hey, can you do like 20, 30, 40 hours a week? Again, say I'm waiting on a few things right now. Let me get back to you. I'll see what I can work out, and then just drop it. Just don't bring it up again, right? And then you keep on cycling in the next client, and then you're always in a position of strength. So you can have as many meetings as you want, many phone calls, as many intros, whatever. And if they're just not in your ballpark, the next one should be $80 an hour, $90 an hour, right? If no one's willing to pay that, that's fine. You got the other one paying you 75, and you just keep on doing that. And years go by. Next thing you know, $200 an hour, right? And then what happens when you kind of hit that maximum point where you really can't realistically bill much higher? Then you do what I do. You sub out and you take commissions off the subbed out work. So now you got some other guy billing 30 hours a week. You're taking a commission off that. You got another guy billing 20 hours a week. Take a commission off that, and you're doing your own billing. And that's kind of where that leads to next. So that's the strategy as far as sort of building up your client base. And along the way, you're raising your rate and you're getting better clients, because as you raise your rate, you're just going to get better clients. That just comes with the territory. Like, you're not going to get some shithead paying you $200 an hour. Like those people don't exist. Like, you're not going to get shitheads doing that. You will get a lot of shitheads paying you $40 an hour. You're going to get a lot of just doofuses and ineffective people and just shitty startups. You're going to get a lot of those. But you don't have to stay in that pocket too long if you know how to negotiate the next contract, the next client. And once you sort of get out of that zone, I'll say the line of demarcation is around 80. Once you get around the $80 an hour zone, you're kind of out of that, that initial level of just, shitty startups. You're entering the VC-backed startup territory where you get a little bit better quality of caliber of individual. Um, so those are a couple techniques, avenues of breaking into the industry that I've used to effect. Oh, and the last one I almost forgot, was you got to get your name out there. You got to get in front of people. You got to really get your work on your brand, is how it's normally phrased, in some way, shape, or form. Whether that be posting articles on Medium, getting something on even YouTube. The YouTube, for me, I don't have that many subscribers, but it has paid very handsome dividends in terms of people reaching out to me for work. Um, uh, a lot of the YouTube customers have paid quite handsomely in terms of work. So, and that's just from the branding I've done on YouTube, videos like this. Um, what else? Doing meetups, very important. If at all possible, you should somehow be a focal point of the meetup. So maybe like a project showcase, right? Where they invite people to show off their projects. Very, very good thing to do. And as long as a lot of eyeballs are on it and people can see you in some form or another, whether it be in person or online or whatever, do as much of that as you can. Those things pay off down the road. One day you'll get an email saying, "Hey, I saw you at this meetup 6 months ago, and I was impressed by that, Firebase application you made. We're looking for someone who can help out with our Firebase project. Are you available?" That kind of thing. That'll happen if you get your name out there, and that's something you need to do right away. You want to be preemptive about this, and so that you have that sort of a system in place where you're being exposed to people in the industry and whatnot, and people are finding you and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, those are the ways to break in. It's not easy. I want to be clear. These aren't shortcuts. These are just the ways to do it. This is how it works. Nothing is guaranteed. Too many people are looking for guarantees. There are no guarantees. I'll put it this way: more of you will fail than succeed. That's just how it is. And you have to be willing to accept those risks. I moved down to Washington, D.C., not knowing anybody, just like I did to New York. I moved to New York, I didn't know anybody. And I moved here, my lease here started August 1, so it is August 23rd, so about 3 weeks ago. I had no real plan other than just I know that DC has some tech startups, and I knew the area somewhat. So that I didn't really have like an angle of attack. I still kind of don't. I'm still kind of feeling it out. Um, but it's worked out. As always, my client list has filled out. Turbo's doing fine. The money's not a problem. That's just fine. So it could have not worked out. The point is that I didn't really have like a guarantee down here. I had no guarantee. But I knew that, well, I can make it work. And even if I don't, yeah, I'll just go back to New York, whatever. It's not a catastrophe. But I knew that it wouldn't come to that. Just come down here and just do what I do. I took an office at WeWork. I'm doing my workshops. I'm meeting a bunch of people. Had a bunch of conversations with startups in the past 3 weeks. Landed a couple clients. This is just the game wherever you are, and it's just different levels depending on the city, right? So obviously in Washington D.C., it's not as intense as San Francisco or New York, but I'm still, my skill level is still what it is. I still have, it's still the same dynamics. You still have the same people. People came from the same colleges, same mentality. You've got the VC firms down here too. You've got all the same nonsense going on down here, just not as much. That's all. So you just got to do what you do. So one adjustment I have to make in DC versus New York is that I can't run as many workshops because there just aren't as many people. So in New York, I could run a workshop almost every night. I was doing like 3 or 4 a week, and it would pretty much max out every single time. Like 15 people, the rooms I was using could only fit about 15. Here, I tried that. That did not work. I set up like 3 or 4 a week for the first 2 weeks. It's just, the first one got a good number, and then like it was like 2 or 3 after that because, there's only so many people. I forgot that Washington D.C. isn't quite as big as New York City, so I had to scale it back a little bit. So these are the kinds of adjustments I have to make, right? So whatever. So just adjust and figure it out. So that's kind of the mindset you have to have as a freelancer: is adjust and figure it out. Just adjust and figure it out, and that's it. Or don't and lose the game. Like I said, there are more people will fail than succeed. That's the risk. Accept it, and then figure out how to work within the parameters that you're presented with, and that's it. There's no such thing as a risk-free environment in this industry. So, all right, I went a little bit longer than I went. I'm hoping to make these videos shorter, so I'll try to keep it under a certain time frame, and hopefully you got some good value out of this. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it below in the comments.